Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome as I call to order the August 11, 2022 special workshop of the Escambia County School Board. The purpose of this workshop is an open discussion on items brought forward by the board and the superintendent. I ask that you silence your cell phones at this time. If you wish to speak to either an agenda item or at a public forum, you must complete the speaker request form found on the table at the rear of the room and bring it to Ms. Buswell over here at the front table. Our first item is calendar. Is there anything to add or discuss for the rest of August or September?
Just, Superintendent, any reason you would like us early, those that are coming to the state board meeting on the 17th, or just 9 o'clock, good start time?
The time has changed. What?
Okay,
I think it's 9:45
9:45?
is the start time.
9:45 start time for it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
For the
then,
entire meeting?
yes,
Oh.
at Pensacola State, yes. And then, we talked about a possible visitation at Warrington with the board members. So that's still slated, but the problem is we don't know what time. It all is contingent upon how long that meeting goes. So,
Aye.
but we'll be able to mobilize to do that. We're just not sure the precise time on that.
okay.
Ms. Odom, did you decide whether we had to advertise that, since it's a publicly advertised meeting already, did you decide whether we needed to have anything indicating we might all be there? You had mentioned it to me.
I would say in an abundance of caution, it would be a good idea to do that, or at least we could put notice. It would not hurt.
But would it absolutely? Because
It would be my recommendation.
It would have to be a
if you know
special-
that two or more of you are going to be present, and if there is a chance that you are going to engage in some kind of conversation or,
if we keep our mouths shut, we can all go?
yes.
Yes.
I'm not promising that.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I will,
I will speak for myself.
if
We'll all leave the room.
If Mr. Slayton and the superintendent and Mr. Adams and my experience with the state board meetings are any indication, the opportunities for you guys to have any kind of meaningful back and forth are extremely slim.
Right.
But I would say that it would not hurt in an abundance of caution to just say that 2 or more school board members may be in attendance.
Okay. I know I'll be going.
Yeah, I plan on attending, and the way their agenda is fixed, it's not like, oh, I'd like to talk to you about that. It doesn't happen. They go one item after another, and they're not interested
3 minutes.
in hearing you personally.
We might get 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I've been at the ones
Well,
before where they've
they
given
went
you
to
30
2
seconds.
At our meeting.
2? Yeah.
Yeah, they went to 2.
I think they told you 3, right?
Well, that's for his presentation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But at the meeting that we attended in Clearwater, because there was an issue before us, they went to 2.
Oh, 2.
Yes.
And I've been at ones where they have cut it to 30 seconds
Yeah.
for a public.
Well,
to speak.
and at that Clearwater one, didn't the public forum get switched? There were so many people, they went to, was it 1 minute?
It was 1 minute
think-
ultimately.
Right, at
Yes.
the end, right.
That was for the public forum piece. So
Yeah.
a lot of people there.
And when we finally got to present, it was like, go ahead and hurry.
Yeah.
That was kind of their motto. So it's not like you could just show up and talk to them. They're not going to talk. They're not going to listen either.
And there, I noticed there's a lot of state rules that are on the agenda. Probably most people are not aware of all those state rules. Just in case you want to know, you can look at it online. But, you know,
Well,
sometimes.
Don't share with us, where is it online?
You have to go to the FLDOE website, and you go, scroll down to State Board, and then you go to
Yeah.
the agenda.
Agenda.
And then, and there's also another place where I found all this, where was, there was another location that had all the State Board rules that were coming up, some of them this month and some at a later time, so,
Yeah, they got a lot of information up there.
yeah. I don't know whether anybody will come and speak to some of those or not.
There you go. Is that it for August? This long. Let's see. Help out the superintendent over there.
What's that?
I said I'd help you out a little bit. Try to move to September.
Question,
Meeting, oh, excuse me, go ahead.
quickly, tomorrow, are we still doing video after the workshop?
So that was one of the things, if you want, we can discuss now if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get
Okay,
that.
so one of the things to consider is doing the video for open house individually or doing one collectively where there's different speaking parts. So the idea of the collective was just with our vision, united for every student to succeed. So, but that's an item for you as a board to discuss what you would prefer, and then we can video according to your preference.
When me and the superintendent discussed it, I was kind of still in favor of just doing it the same way I've done it in the past, you know, which I even thought about using the same video I had from last year. So it's the first time that my parents that I see a lot in schools get to recognize my face, and it's the first introduction for a lot of new people I got moving in. But that was my thought. So,
I thought, since I probably would have to defer to Ms. Hightower, we've been doing it the same way at least for 18 years?
No,
You haven't done a video every year?
no, I used to actually go.
Well, I mean, go, yeah, but you can't go to all.
Many, well, that, you know, it was a little, you know, I mean, you
Can't
went
go
to
to
as
all
many
of
as you
them.
could, and you took a record of where I went this year, and then the next year I went.
Yeah, but I mean,
10 years, Mr. Dennis said.
an opening video. I thought
I
the
think
idea.
Mr. Thomas was when we started it. It's like, yeah.
Okay, I thought the idea of a combined group, I don't know if you're talking about like this, you know, the superintendent would have a message.
And we're behind him saying, yes.
Right, I think that's a good change of pace. We have been doing it the same way for several years.
That's right.
And I
Might
think
say, oh,
it's,
wait, they're all there.
yeah. So I like the new, that idea personally. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
like the idea of doing it together also. And the reason for it is that I believe that being united, we are one together, united for all students to succeed. But the other part is that when we are elected by a voting district, but we serve the entire district. And we do, and I've publicly said over and over now, you know, any parent from any district can call me or any other board member to get answers, whoever they could reach or feel comfortable with. And that's one way of showing that, yeah, we're all in this together. And we may have a close connection with certain schools or certain districts, but we serve every student in every school. And so I like the idea of doing it that way and showing some solidarity. And, you know, this isn't a political thing, but, you know, with the stuff going on, I'd like to drag some more of you all with me under that bus.
Dr. Heather?
Yes.
I'm very flexible. I'd like to know if you can find the one from last year.
He has it.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So
Majority saying they wouldn't do the group.
do the group, okay, and then I think what we could do is then each of us would have a speaking part, so you're able to say your name and district, or,
I think that's too complicated. I think
Okay.
you do your message, we're there.
okay,
That's the way we'd have to do it.
okay.
Well, I don't think it's going to hurt if the superintendent introduces us.
Oh, no. This is my
because-
team.
Right, this
Yes.
is our team, and we work to,
Right.
the motto is we're working together for you,
Yes.
for the students, and
Right.
so here we are.
Okay,
I think that's a good idea.
Do the introduction right at the beginning and then say your piece and we're right behind you saying.
Or next
right.
to you so that everybody can be seen.
yes.
And I could wear this right, because I gotta go to Mobile right after the meeting.
There you go, yes. Got the shirt, yeah. Yes.
So I have to wear mine?
So then what time, Elizabeth, do we have a time for that? After the work. Okay.
Would that work?
Rodney?
Look, I'm
will-
looking at Cody to
okay.
make sure he's got.
Okay.
I believe we should go fairly.
Just, you jinxed it. You did it.
All right, let's go to September calendar.
I should dress nicely.
Mr. Chairman? If I could just draw attention, we are looking at the November 14th combined workshop with regard to, last month we spoke about Neola, which is a program that does, they take new legislation and write policy. Ms. Odom, did I get that correct? And so we are looking at that, engaging with a presentation from Neola on the 14th at that combined workshop. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that November. Yes. I think that was the date that they could make to do the presentation.
Not too sure.
Okay,
Elizabeth,
I
you can
guess
put that on
what
the calendar, right?
we're saying is we are agreeing to move the workshop to Monday, the 14th.
Yeah, we already did that.
Being Veterans Day.
I agree, but I didn't, we did? We voted on that? I don't remember. Did you remember that?
Remember a conversation.
Okay, that's fine. That's great
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the regular board meeting is on the 15th.
True.
Yes, she already put it on our calendars. But you've got it does it start at 9? Okay, because for some reason my calendar is doing Eastern time. I've got to fix that.
Now that
You'll be here
present.
early.
No, late.
No, Eastern.
Late. They're an hour ahead of us, Bill.
I know, that's what she'll be here before the thing starts.
Well, she should have been here yet.
Oh, well, okay. She was on a paddle boat that was being towed, so.
So I believe that presentation is 30 minutes as well.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I'm correct. So, thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, I was going to ask, the Friday, the 9th meeting, the AFR meeting, to approve that, is that in this room? I want to just confirm that. I don't know who's in charge.
What date was that?
I think it's on the 9th of September.
I don't recall if we moved it or kept it here.
Okay.
It's here?
It is
Okay.
160. Yeah.
At 8:30.
8:30.
8:30.
8:30? What I've got.
You good, Patty? Mm-hmm. Okay. Bill, you good?
I think so.
Okay. I want to ask Paul.
I'm good.
All right, so we'll go to public forum update. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had two speakers. Ms. Kreiser was, if you recall, she presented about her concerns with safety in crosswalks. And that was due to a family member who was tragically lost in a traffic situation. We did have her connected with Mr. Kinzer to further discuss those matters. We also had Mr. Bennett, who spoke about the school resource officer contracts. He has been in contact, I believe, with Ms. Odom a number of times about those details. So those are the two items we had.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go ahead and move to our first board agenda item. Mr. Slayton?
I just put this on at the spur of the moment just because Mr. Dennis and I were attending the kickoff for transportation. And I don't even see anyone here. I guess they're all
Driving.
looking and driving, right, and holding on to everything. But I just think we have to take the opportunity to thank these people for all the work that's been done. And that just, it's not just transportation, but HR and everybody else has been participating in trying to get us up to the point we are right now with transportation. As I've listened to the lovely media, I don't think they've presented the successes of Escambia County nearly as well as they should have, as far as what we've done, what we're still doing, and what the future looks like for us. So, I mean, I was delighted. I forget the route supervisor. They introduced all the route people, and then she was there and she asked, "Can I tell everybody?" And she said, "Yes, go right ahead." The director did. Said that they were only 3 routes short of having everything covered by not just somebody can drive, but by a person that belongs to that. Now, that may have changed between now and then, but at the same time, this was a Tuesday before. And folks, that's incredible to think of where we were last year and the panic we were in, and we had no idea. And so we need to take the opportunity to thank everybody. Were you pointing at HR? Yeah, oh, I know. He and I have discussed this many times, and how they're working diligently with transportation and all the other departments to make sure these people get their job, get employed, get everything taken care of. I don't know if anybody can even give us a report on where we are today. Mr. Dennis, you're the lucky guy because I don't see anybody else.
I can speak to transportation, but I know our next item, HR will be giving a more detailed briefing,
Okay.
I'm sure. But at the time, we had 3 vacant routes. Obviously, we have more than 3 route managers, which means everything was covered if our route managers are driving. We have 5 at the moment, but I believe we have 4 or 5 in training as we speak. So we also have about 20% new drivers because, a lot of new players. And so we anticipate a little bit of attrition first few weeks, but we're doing as well as we would in a pre-2020 state. So, if not better. And we still have route managers driving, but the delays you're seeing are basically operational delays now. They're not the double back, triple back, those type of things. So very, very, if you can call a school start normal, very, very much more normal than we're accustomed to seeing in the last 2 years.
I did observe the media interviews that went on out, and Cody, if we can get those, I don't think they would hurt us to find a way to put them out on the web or whatever. They were bus drivers saying how important their job was and how much they enjoyed their job, and that they didn't take it for granted. And it wasn't just a matter of getting a kid and throwing them on the bus and hurrying up to another school. It was, this is important, and I am important to this child. And I've just for the fact that he's got that name, Mr. Bus Driver was one of them, and 2 or 3 others. And so compliments to these people, and we need to make an effort to do some really thank yous to everyone. How many drivers do we have? Do you have any idea? That's going to catch you with a good one.
I wouldn't even dare a guess, sir, but it's under 300.
But that's fine. I mean, big number. And last year that could have been under 200, and we would have, because we were panicking. So compliments to the Director of Transportation and everybody over there, because they've taken this to heart and really, I'm sure there were things that didn't go perfectly in my district, but I didn't hear anything about it. And the schools that I hit at, because I don't like to get involved in bus driver lines or car rider lines or anything on the first day. I kind of observed them.
I was out there.
Pine Meadow did make it to Highway 29 with plenty of room to spare, but that's just the routing you have to do at that school. But now I'm sure as we get toward the third day, parents are relaxing and they're letting their children ride the bus to school. And that's if they have a bus ticket. That's right. So that was my item. It was just a matter of transportation, and it's a miracle to where we are. And we need to thank the entire department over there. I wish they were here to say it to them, but they're probably where they need to be, making sure that transportation is working today. That's all, sir.
And this board, some actions I think that help too, so I appreciate what this board has done. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't know what role Mr. Struthers played in getting some of that PR out to it. So I appreciate the fact that either you're reaching out and saying, here's a good story for you, or you're able to direct them to the right people to get the positive stories out. And HR for all of the job fairs that y'all accomplished. And I really think the number of job fairs you've done, not we, you've done in the last year has helped us get to where we are today. It's not like somebody's just sitting around waiting for somebody to come in and say, can I get a job? So we're really out looking, and I appreciate everybody for their efforts in that.
Fetsko? You good? And I have preached that grace and compassion, for the parents the first couple of days, because, especially the K through 5, because every parent wants to bring their kid to school by car, so it's a little crazy, and it just takes a couple of days for the buses to get worked out, who's getting on what bus and where they're going. So it will get better as the week goes on. So I've told a lot of parents contact me, just patience, but we're going to get there.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes.
Mr. Superintendent, the statements that we made to parents about walking their children to class and things like that, I think we need to put that in as a item that's in somewhere, that's just our common practice, because and not have it come out the week before school starts. So we need to start saying that probably at the end of the school year, and each month we reiterate, this is for your own safety. This is for the calmness of the beginning of school. And I didn't hear any problems. I asked my principals, let me know, and no one did. I know there were a couple of concerned parents before that, but it seemed to have melted down. I see our two directors back there are buried in their computers. Did everything go all right as far as that, as far as you know? That's great. So we need to put that in early and say it several times, because that makes it not a surprise to anybody. Thank you, sir.
And I will just caution, it's not about walking them to school. It's about walking them to their class.
Class, yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's a great point. We can get out on that early next year, and really the whole drive on that is safety. It is all about safety, and you know, it's one of those practices when you step back and you're examining, okay, how are we starting, and we're realizing we're open here. Our campuses are open, and so we wanted to close that point of vulnerability up. And so, but I do agree. I think the earlier the better, that we can get that message out. And if I can just also piggyback, Mr. Slayton, thanks for the comments about transportation, because it is amazing where we are today from where we were 12 months ago. You know, operations, transportation, they've done tremendous work. HR has done tremendous work. This board has done tremendous work with the pay increase. The cessation of the smoking policy has already led to some more applications coming in. So you all have been incredibly supportive of that endeavor and active in that endeavor, and I thank you for it. It really speaks to teamwork, to unity. You see all the departments, everybody just working together, pulling for our buses to be able to operate. And I'll tell you another group that I really want to thank is our parents, because we've had to change some schedules for our elementary schools, and some of our parents and their kids are waking up early, but they're doing it to help us out, and I think our parents see the big picture of teamwork and being unified for all of our kids. Their routes are early, maybe because it impacts a high school kid who's much older than their kids, but they're doing it, and I really appreciate our parents and their help with that.
And hopefully, if we get enough bus drivers, we can cancel that real early time period.
That would be glorious. Yes.
I have a lot of parents that'd be happy.
Yes.
Mr. Superintendent, I'd kind of like to ask that, probably through the elementary directors mainly, that we really keep track and through transportation of things that are going awry, or if they do or don't, especially with our schools in need of improvement. We have some on an early start time, and that early start time with the populations that we're serving can be very, it could be lead to some situations that we really don't want to happen. We don't want students coming late, missing that early block in the morning with our English language arts and reading and math. And if we see those kind of things going on and on, I think we still need to work to see if we could change some things, and to be just ever more mindful with the ones whose scores have put them under the microscope.
Yes, and circling back to Mr. Adams' point, certainly our goal is to eliminate that early start time. That it would be a great thing if we can pull that off in the future for next year. Yeah. So no, we can't do it this year, but for next year, if we could pull that off, that's a goal to do that. Because, Mr. Fetsko, you are right. There are impacts, and we of course want to minimize those impacts. The matrix of those bus routes gets very complicated because I know I met with Ms. Hart one day and said, why can't we just do this school and not this school? And she literally had to create a map because it was so complicated how there is such a dynamic web of routes going to here, there, the length of them, the distance from one school to another. So it is, and that's why some schools were selected, because of their proximity and and so forth. So, but your point is well taken. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
While we're making sure we track that, I want to be sure that we're tracking our middle schools. Last year, we wound up not knowing that many of the schools, because of late buses, kids were missing first period. And so I want to be sure that that doesn't happen again, or that there are procedures. I know Dr. Roberts worked with those middle schools to come up with a system where it wouldn't be the same period every time. So I just want to make sure that we're targeting that as well.
Yes, sir.
And that's actually why we had a problem at 2 of our high schools last year, which is why we added a few more. Your high schools have bigger regions that require more time, just another level of complexity. So we added 2 to the early list, and in an effort to make sure our high school kids are getting to school on time. So the more effective that has, it then has the domino effect on the middle schools as well. So we hope we're getting more timely and faster, and certainly having the routes filled with bus drivers is the critical piece, because when we have to do double backs and we're combining things, that's when we get the big slowdowns. So,
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, Mr. Fetsko, you're next up.
We've kind of hit
Personnel
this.
numbers.
I kind of hit this already, the idea of the update on personnel, where we are. We know that we're in decent shape, or better than decent shape, with the bus drivers, but where are we, Mr. Leonard, with our instructional and support people?
Bus operators, when we got it down to a single hand on vacant routes, we felt like really good accomplishment.
How many were we short a while back? Wasn't it like 60 or 70 or?
Earlier on during the hiring year, April, May of last year, it was around 60.
60? Okay, that's pretty good.
You're always going to have attrition, so to be able to overcome that is quite the feat. So we feel good about the efforts of transportation and HR as it relates to that. We're still going to push 20 to 25 more bus operators and or sub-operators, we believe, going into October 1 with a $15 rate. That'll help us there, and with other positions as well. Food service, they still need 40, 45 food service workers. They have 14 that are currently in the hiring process, so that helps there. They are doing the things that they need to do in getting children fed, but you always rather have a few more than not enough. Maintenance, I believe maintenance is at 27, and they have, I know we posted 10 positions for them last week. They have interviews coming up this week. Custodial workers, we're still around in the need of 50. In particular, getting some numbers at some of our larger campuses. I know Pine Forest was able to hire 5 early this week, so that will help that site. From an instructional standpoint side, we're still right about 50, which you remember a month ago we were at 79. Those numbers for all of these classifications of employees fluctuate daily, both to the good and to the bad. But we hope October will help us. The October 1st $15 minimal implementation will help us. And then on the instructional side, Mr. Fetsko, you will remember these days, and Mr. Slayton as well. Next week, on day 5, 6, and 7, we'll be working with our budgeting, finance, and C&I people, going through the staffing at each school site. I know that when we look in focus, we see some classrooms that have a high number of students, and then we see other schools where there's a low number of students. So hopefully we'll be able to fluctuate staff and get them where they're needed. That's always, I don't like having to do that. We don't like having to do that. We like for there to be consistency, but in the state that we're in right now, those are going to be moves that are necessary. And it's been quite a number of years since we had movement, or a considerable amount of movement at the 8-day count, because we pretty much have been held harmless for those 2 years that we were in COVID. That's not the case now. So FTE is going to be critical. So we'll make those moves after the 8-day count. But I want to commend all the different departments that have worked diligently and with each other to meet these goals, and we'll continue to do what we can to hire more staff.
Have our sub numbers come up also?
Yes, substitute teachers, substitute custodians, those have come up, yes. It's a good question.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate all the work.
Because I have received, after the newspaper article about the 79 teacher openings, of course, we did get calls and concerns about accusations that we were just putting substitutes out there. I want to make sure you know that we have 33 what we call sub-2 teachers. They're lacking one item. It may be the subject area exam, it may be the professional ed exam. So we have 33 of those. Anybody else that's out there as a long-term sub is either covering for someone who's ill, maternity leave, whatever it may be. So I wanted to be sure you heard the truth on that as well.
So those are ones who are on the track to be full-time once they complete the paperwork process.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to say that so that people understood that again, that the,
Yes.
you know.
Thank you.
Bill?
I'll say this to Keith, but it's Cody also. I think that this new military rule, we need to do something to make sure they really understand that rule. Because it doesn't say if you left the military, you can now become a teacher. There are some stipulations in that rule.
Yes, sir.
Oddly enough, my son-in-law has retired from the military, and he's already got a job back with the military. But his boss contacted him to find out about it, and he wants to teach math. And so, I told him, I said, have him call your office and understand this. Because he didn't understand what do I have to do? What do I have to, he just couldn't believe you just walk in and say, hi, here's my papers, I'm out, give me a job. And you don't. So help me, exactly what does a person have to accomplish to become a certified teacher?
Yes, sir. I hope to be able to help you more after the state board meeting, because that's when they will officially adopt this rule
Got you.
and give us technical assistance as to how each school district should operate. It is my understanding that if you have 60 college credit hours and are a veteran of the military and you pass a subject area exam, then you can become a teacher. You'll get your statement of eligibility and we'll be able to hire you. And then during a 5-year period, you will have to complete the other obligations, which means completing a degree, completing the professional ed, general knowledge, and all those other items that all of our teachers have to complete. That is my understanding, but I will be able to give you more information after it is formally adopted.
Thank you, because I'm afraid that too many times the media has released that as if you've left the military, you can now become a teacher. And I think we need to clarify that. We're interested, but at the same time, everybody that leaves the military doesn't need to be a teacher. And that's just the honest truth, because have sampled that particular problem. But at the same time, if there are people that are interested and they like the schedule and they like the subject area, we would definitely like to talk to them. So I don't know how to communicate that. I don't know how to make sure that they understand that better. But whatever we have to do, and I didn't know that the state still had to approve it. Of course, there's not much doubt they will. Yeah. Okay, so that's just my concern, that we clarify that everybody that's leaving the military does not need to be teaching, thinking they can teach.
Well, I'll take anybody out of the military that's got 60 credit hours and wants to teach, to fill these vacancies. So,
I don't know
but I
that-
think it is important, though, that you pointed out it's the 60 credit hours.
Right.
Because it was put out there like you can just come right out of the military. But, boy, if we can get any of our great soldiers out there that have that compassion to want to teach, and they got the 60 credit hours, I'd love to see them, wouldn't you, Superintendent?
Okay.
Well, I'm just gonna say, and that real kinker into it is pass the subject area exam.
Yeah, they got 5 years, right, to get that, or what?
No.
Oh, they got to pass the other tests, yes.
They have to
And then
pass
the
it.
rest of the requirements in 5 years.
Right, so that's a sticker. That's tough.
Yeah.
We don't have easy subject area exams, so that's,
Have we had any troop teachers yet, or?
We've had inquiries, yes, sir. Federal government did away with troops to teachers, so that program doesn't exist any longer.
Yeah.
This is what the state of Florida has
The
presented.
state of Florida,
Yep.
okay. Okay, good subject. Anything else? Okay, if not, I had to throw something on late because we got a notice, I think Patty probably saw it too, that we got to get the platform done. But we also, I wanted to start discussing the Tobaga study that was done. We appreciate Michelle Salzman. I think you saw the email from Rob Doss. The study basically stated what we already knew. You know, when it comes to sidewalks and crosswalks and pedestrian bridges, make it safer for kids. But, so anyways, Rob sent that email to you, so he wants a little bit more time to think about this and get with Michelle Salzman and come up. But I did think it was interesting when you looked at those MPOs and what they stated on the report, and then when you looked at the transportation managers, almost a different viewpoint going there. So, but it was a good study, and it was great. They used Escambia County as one of the examples. So it's a very in-depth report. So so I'm looking forward to when Rob, you know, he's more of an expert at this than I am. He's hoping to come to a future board meeting and discuss this with him after he sits down with Representative Salzman and see exactly how they want to tackle any kind of statute to try to improve on it. But he said it just points out exactly what he's been preaching for years. So, so anything that to help keep our kids safe, I'm there for it, you know. Patty, got anything?
Yeah, I was very appreciative of Mr. Doss's letter to us. Having looked at this, I think Michelle actually sent this to us back in July.
Yes.
So, but I think one of the things that we as a board, while getting the legislature to do something is always a miracle, but I didn't say that, that there are things that we can do locally to
Yes.
get this thing on the, we can have a joint meeting with our county and our city and create our own plan for implement, because the whole thing is, oftentimes with legislature, they will look at this and they'll write legislation, but they'll leave out the key piece of funding, or those kind of things. And I think because when you look at this and you see that Escambia County is right there at the top of the problem areas,
Right.
It's not just about our students, it's about our citizens too.
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So I know the part about the students came in because of the transportation cost, because we transport hazardous walks for those that are out of K6, when they're not covered. So, but I just, you know, if there's an opportunity for us to be able to, and, you know, and I sent this back to Mr. Doss, so maybe if we sit down together and try to figure out, you know, what can we as a community do to start moving forward in this and not have to wait for the legislature to take action.
Yeah, and you notice Florida was way out on some of this, with the 50 mile per hour of a kid walking down the side of the road, where those stakes were much lower. All the different criteria pointed at exactly what we knew, which unfortunately Florida has the highest pedestrian fatality and injury rate in the United States, almost year after year after year, and there's a reason. So, but I agree with Patty, it'd be great if we could do something locally. There's been some discussions, maybe some legislation can be wrote to where it's more local control, because Suwannee County is going to be a little different than Orange and, you know, the different counties, and I think that's some of the fear across with these different places. So if it's more of a local control to where we can come up with our own plan with our county commissioners, I think it's great. So, anything we can do, but I appreciate Representative Salzman having that study done. It's a great study to look at. So, any other comments?
I just think that we also need to be aware that I kind of laughed when I saw this part of the report, the comparisons to Pennsylvania, having been raised in Pennsylvania and gone to school there and still have relatives and with children who go. Pennsylvania, using it is strange because transportation is not part of the school district. Parents are expected to get their kids there, period. And if they want bus transportation, they pay extra for it. That's not part of the public schools. And the public schools in Pennsylvania, each municipality is one school district. I think there are 1,600 school districts in Pennsylvania. So they don't have the capacity for the transportation that we have. If you have one elementary school, one secondary school, and you have 2,000 students, you don't have a transportation department. And so there's a lot of private school bus vendors, and the parents then pay monthly for their child to ride the bus. And so there are differences, and you need to watch that. But there again, the infrastructure in some places, the Pittsburgh area, we were expected to ride the city buses, and we paid for it ourselves. There was no one who took care of that. So we're not comparing apples to oranges even. It's nice to have information on what their regulations say, but applying them to our scenario is so vastly different. Just like Escambia County and Hillsborough County, the number of the congestion, the city, things involved there, a lot more sidewalks, a lot of things there. Then compared to Gadsden or one of the other rural counties, Jefferson County, you couldn't possibly have kids walk to school at those distances. So I just saw some uniquenesses to it. It said, made me stop and think.
Right. Yeah, it's different because Florida is the third most populous state with
Yeah.
only 67 school districts. There is no other state in the union like it. So the other one's got thousands. I talked to a school board member, I think he was from Virginia. He was calling me about an issue he had, and in our conversation, I said, well, how many schools you got? He goes, 3. Elementary school, middle school, and a high school for a school district. And I was thinking, boy, that's a little bit nicer. So it is different when you got a county-wide school district like we do in Florida, much different. So we got the urban area up north, and then we got more city in the south, and we got to get the kids to school somehow. So, but what Rob Doss is pointing out about the car per second, you can still cross the road, all that's true. So anyway, whatever we can do to keep those kids safe, I'm happy, and I'm looking forward to see what, more input from Rob, and like Patty says, maybe we need to do something here in Escambia County and do our own thing. Okay, our next subject is the legislative platform. I had Elizabeth print out because that was kind of late notice we got the other day when I saw they want to start submitting. And basically, I just need to know if there's anything that we want to change on this as a board or add.
Mr. Chair, I believe all of us probably received the email from Ms. Odom about the IT concerns. I don't know, I mean, I'm in favor of us putting something forward along those lines where we, the privacy of our staff in their personnel records, if there's, if you could help us craft what we need to write there, can
Yeah,
you kind of
craft us a
send it
little
to
bullet.
us? But
Yeah, and then Tuesday night, we could take a look at it, Tuesday night, and if it's,
I mean,
if you can forward it to the board for Tuesday night, so if they want to wordsmith it
I
some.
should be able to have you something tomorrow. And I should have something tomorrow. And I do want to make clear that when I sent you the email, as I've told you from the beginning
Yeah.
of my employment with you, I'm not advocating positions. I don't get involved in these kind of political decisions.
Right.
But as I mentioned, the concerns were raised by IT in a meeting that I had with them about the vulnerabilities of the personally identifying information of our employees. And so that led me to, since you are the ones who can
Right.
Adopt a legislative platform, that I felt I would, I felt it appropriate to share their concerns with you.
And
I'm sorry.
excuse me, I was going to say, Mr. Leonard, do you remember when there was a a person that was going around the state gathering, asking for names and addresses of personnel. Dr. Scott was here, and that was when we kind of did away with some of the areas where we had that information available. But I think this is in particular reference to if someone were to request a personnel file.
Public records request.
Yeah. So,
Yes, I do remember that, yes, ma'am.
and would you be, you want to think about it, or do you think this is a good idea that we try to put something together that would protect our personnel's private records? I mean, their personal addresses and phone numbers. It's not, everything else would be there.
Yeah, if you give, I would like to think about
Okay.
it. The way you pose that question, absolutely, I want to do whatever we can do to protect our people. I do know that the state database requires that we submit our employees' names and email addresses. They're getting ready to do that in the upcoming survey. But as far as all their other information, absolutely, we need to do whatever we can do to protect it. So I can, if the superintendent wants me to, I can work with Ellen to do what we need to do from an HR and personnel standpoint. Okay.
Yes, Paul?
I like the authorizing the school districts to reemploy the school-based administrators, teachers, subs, and other instructional personnel after 1 month of retirement. And then they would have no penalties with their retirement benefits and so forth.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to see something about increasing, and I know that, I think instructionally, we could increase the drop length beyond 5 years on a year-to-year basis up to what, 7 or 8? 8. And I'd like to see if the legislature would do something like that for administrators too. That, you know, we've had this past spring, at least 2 administrators, excellent administrators, who had to go out because of the constraints with their age, the number of years, and if they were going to be in drop, they had to do it. And if we could extend that to 8 years, in fact, I'd like to see the teachers to be able to go up to 10 years and administrators at least to 8.
Okay, but this, and this.
And that's not going to go there. It would be something different.
Something different?
This has to do with drop
Okay,
and being able to extend drop.
okay.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I just happened to be in Leonard's office. We ran a discussion about deadlines for administrators to get into these programs. So I want him to say it so everybody is aware, and sorry I didn't call you earlier and say I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay. If you are an administrator on the administrative salary schedule, you are required to enter drop at either 57 years of age or 30 years of service, whichever one comes last. If you do not do that, then you do not get to avail yourself to drop the way the law is currently written. So either at 57 years of age or 30 years of service, whichever one comes last.
What's instructional?
Instructional, there is no
There is none.
Okay, there's no,
requirement on age, or
you just have to do 5
you have to have
years.
30 years of service to be able to do drop as an
And so
instructional staff
when you
member.
do it, you do 5 years, and then if you decide after that, like some of these people that we're so grateful that they're coming back, they've decided to extend, or?
And in order for you to be able to extend, your site administrator has to recommend you, and the superintendent has to approve for you to go beyond the 5th year. And then it's every year beyond the 5th year, so the 6th year, the 7th year, and then ultimately it would conclude at the end of the 8th year.
Was speaking with someone in my Rotary Club, and we were talking about corporate and how they value the experience, knowledge base of their employees. And a lot of times, they don't even get started doing that until they're 60 or 62. They feel like that they're earning their way up, and that experience is getting better and better. And what we're doing is they get to the peak of experience time, and we have to say, now you need to get out. Well, that has ramifications not only in administration, but that also, every time we do this, we pull people out of the school-based situation. Sure, they've been working to become an administrator, but they may have to do it quicker because there's a position coming open that really we don't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate some of the ones Mr. Leonard has told me about. Just didn't even think about. They're ready to go to retire. No, they're not, maybe not ready to, but the state says you will because you had to go into drop at this a certain point. So I'm not sure how, who can word that. I agree. We need to do something to help us hold on to our leadership.
I don't know that there was enough research done within the Department of Education or somewhere to look at the baby boomer generation. And that, the great outflow of people has to do with age. Our largest number of employed people for a great number of years were baby boomers. And it looked like, okay, well, the generations after that were far smaller. And so there should have been some anticipation of, hey, we're going to lose a huge percentage of our employees, both instructional, administrative, just because of age. And that wasn't taken into consideration. So some of these regulations, for whatever reason, they came into effect. Rumor always has that it's a punitive thing, that you don't want somebody to be making all this money. And I don't know a whole lot of millionaires that are teachers, but the idea of limiting things with drop and making drop something that is so controlled and it is counterproductive to what we need to do to keep good people and to entice people to come into the profession. So we need to take those barriers away. There shouldn't be the age requirement or the years. That if somebody wants to work and they have the capacity to do it, keep them as long as you can. And or if they have to go out for a few years for whatever reason and say, hey, I'm rested, I'm rejuvenated, I could do 2-3 more, so be it. That experience goes a long way into keeping our students at the front edge instructionally. So I don't know.
I think the superintendent
Okay, I'm sorry.
wants to add on to that.
I was just going to say, when drop was originally put in, is my understanding that it had a certain purpose. Well, that has changed now. The landscape of employment has changed dramatically. So it's a system that might not quite fit like it used to in the grand scheme of our employee numbers. And now we have a labor shortage involved. So in administrative in particular, if you took the age requirement out, that would open up some more where you'd have some more administrators who could stay longer without really much change of the law.
But
other
just
than
the
that.
age requirement.
For administrators, yeah.
So just the age requirement, if we just ask for a change on
Most,
that.
I shouldn't say this. It's the way I think. Most people would try to make it to where their exit date was going to be Medicare eligible. What most people would try to do. So.
Because that's what I was going to ask you, because, we're sitting up here saying that we, and I remember, as you do, Dr. Smith, that they were trying to get some of the others out so that the new blood could come in. Yeah. And they did that enticement of drop to entice those people to leave. And now this is the result of all that enticement. But I think that I'd like to, I don't want to just jump and say, yay, all of our administrators want to stay until they're 62 or 65 without having some feedback from them, maybe. I don't know.
Well, again, people make their own decisions on when they want to retire and do that. And annually, there are evaluations to say, is somebody going to be reappointed or not? So, that also has changed in the years that have gone on. the ability to say, you know, we're not offering you a contract has happened more times than people expected. And so there's not that way of doing that. And you know, like, the new blood is one thing, but, you know, we need the old donors because we got no new blood.
Well, I appreciate what Paul's saying, but I will tell you, if we were able to successfully get the bullet number in section 2, that bullet there on the 12 months, that would be a great win if we got that. So, I mean, but we could put something else in there, and, you know, FSBA's got Kim McGougall, lobbyists and all them, and they'll tell us whether it's a no-go or whatever, but we can always submit and see what they do.
Off the top of your head, either Mr. St. Cyr or Mr. Leonard, I won't put you on the spot, Dr. Smith, is there any economic advantage to keeping people until they're 62 rather than, because, you know, in any business environment, back to what you were talking about, you want to train the people and you want to keep those that you have trained because you've spent a lot of money training these people and getting them to the point they are. But, you know, I didn't know whether there would be any disadvantage financially to us.
As Dr. Smith said earlier, when this came about 25 years ago, I guess, maybe, not quite, it was to get the high-paid people kind of out of the system and bring up lower-paid individuals. Didn't feed off of Division of Retirement so much and was such a burden on the agencies that were eligible for it. As far as keeping people is tough right now. The young people that come in are job hopping, and there's no question about that. I mean, you can't blame them. I mean, in the environment where you're coming in and trying to find get some experience, get some good paying jobs, they come in and get experience, and sometimes they'll move on. Now, I'm not talking about teachers per se. I'm talking about some of the other areas that I deal with. It's tough keeping people right now. We're working hard trying to keep people and entice others to come in. So from the teacher standpoint, Keith can or Steve can address that better, but most people are ready to go probably by the time, like we talked about, what Keith said, when they get eligible for Medicare. The insurance issues that you deal with and having high-priced health insurance from the district versus the other option. That's what I know about it.
Okay, so everybody's got homework for tomorrow, tonight for tomorrow, and I think we got a pretty good platform, but we can tweak and put a few things in. And what I did last time, I submitted each one of these items, you know, for the platform for FSBA.
Does anybody know, just off the top, I mean, I could do a search, the statute that relates to drop and the years? Could you send that to us? Thanks.
I actually talked to Ms. Salzman last week. It's in chapter 121. I'll be setting something up with Mrs. Odom and Ms. Salzman after August 23rd.
Okay.
Okay. So you're working with her on that too? Okay, good deal. Excellent. Paul, you got something? Okay.
But one other
Yes.
thing, accidentally I came across this about the voluntary pre-K brings the reminder of something that the superintendent and I were kind of looking into, and that's the state of Louisiana passed a law, provision, something, and it allowed the individual school districts to take over the pre-K programs. And I was on a trip and listening to a gentleman talk about their city and their county and start bragging about they had the #1 school district in the state. And he knew, and he's not an educator. The reason was they were able, by law, to take over the pre-K program. They ran it completely. I'm not sure if the superintendent's had time or anybody has had time to investigate it that much. I know this legislative session's coming up quick, but it's something that some other states are actually, this state, the state of Louisiana is looking into, as it is the secret to improving their school district. You have any comments, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Slayton. This actually is a very intriguing notion, and one, quite frankly, I'm really excited about this concept. I was able to speak to the coordinator in that school district and gain some very helpful information about what they are doing. And so here's kind of in a summary format what they do. If you look at let me contrast it to what we do. If you look at what we do, we have money that comes in through early literacy. And that's actually, I didn't know this until recently, that actually is a component of the Department of Education. And so the person who works here in Escambia is part of DOE, technically. Then you have community action. So you have kind of two groups, then you have us. My big concern that we have is I feel like we are missing kids between the three kind of entities. And we have students that if we could have engaged in some of these early programs, including VPK, that could make a huge difference in our kindergarten readiness. So in having conversation with this individual who leads this effort in the school district in Louisiana, and you have to keep in mind too, they're a very small school district. But what she said is we went to the state and it was agreed upon authorization for them to basically take all these moving parts and be the umbrella organization for that. Meaning, just like Mr. Slayton said, they took it. They oversaw it. And she said it has been a great help to them because now they are reaching the more students. They're from being able to train people in a very systematic way to being able to track and analyze the data, all these different facets. And she said it's been a game changer for them. It has impacted our school system, and our school system, she said, is one of the top in the state as far as performance indicators. So very excited about this concept. One of my next steps is there's an early learning group that has been created in Florida Department of Education. So my goal is to reach out to them and see what possibilities exist. I have spoken to the leaders of those groups that I mentioned in Escambia County and shared this idea. So perhaps there could be some intriguing option in the future, but that's where we are. It's a concept to be continued in its exploration. So.
I'm going to go back historically,
Uh-oh.
okay?
I can go back further.
Well, yes, you can, but I'm not talking about when you were.
I know. Thank you.
Okay. One of the earliest preschool experiences in this county were ESE students. Okay, in the 70s, 80s, children from birth to 3 still are, but started serving deaf and blind kids in the 70s, and it continued and went on. The pre-K that was done in the school district was all done through Title I, and Dr. Kohler, you better pay attention and correct me when I'm wrong. But we had an outstanding pre-K program within our Title I schools. And we had, at that time, Mr. Wayne Odom was the director of Title I. He had studies that showed longitudinally the increase in academics through a student's academic career because of pre-K involvement. We were operating greatly, and it was one of our local politicians helped to spearhead things statewide to remove, I'm not going to name his name, although you're smiling, Ms. Hightower, to remove that possibility because we were taking so many students away from child care programs. So the child care groups lobbied within the legislature to come up with the early learning coalitions who did that. The Department of Early Learning, now under the Department of Education, just started this year. So derailing or stopping that locomotive, it's already left the station. I know this because I'm on the Early Learning Coalition board. We had our meeting this morning. And the funding that flows through there and the things that are going on, it's going to be real hard to get private daycares to not fight back and say, oh no, you're not taking this population that we have, because we get our livelihood through that. Now, the requirements for those daycares that do VPK are similar to us, except that as a school district, we use certified teachers. They don't. They have trained but not certified. We do a full day where they do 3 hours. We supplement the rest of the day in our school-based VPK programs, the 16 schools that we have this year. We supplement to make it a full school day. Parents want the full school day, otherwise they get the 3 hours and have to pay for the other remaining hours. So they want, and we're at 100% as of yesterday in our VPK classes school-wide. Talked about with Dr. Colo, I had a discussion earlier this week for other reasons, talked about could we do it in every school? Well, no, we can't. At this point, we can't because we don't get funded for VPK. We can't keep taking money away from Title I where that need is there for the K through, at least through middle school. You know, those Title I students need that extra funding for the services they still require. We are not using or not supposed to use general revenue dollars for pre-K because it's meant for a K-12 program. So we've kind of had our hands tied on what we can and can't do. The combination of funding now in our VPKs using VPK, Title I, and Head Start, you know, to be able to fund that is what we've got going on. The other thing that makes us the pre-K provider of choice is the ability to transport. And that's another thing. But we do a great job with it, and where we don't, parents choice out a VPK set places just like they do any other school. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that one of the highest scoring, I believe, Dr. Colo will correct me, VPK sites is at Navy Point Elementary. And I'm going to go and say David Vaughn is the premier VPK or pre-K teacher, and every parent over there wants their kid in David's class. They do extremely well. But it ties back to Navy Point was a B this year. Their VPK, their pre-K program has expanded and been very successful over the last few years. We need that in all the places we could do it. But we don't have the capacity unless we start putting pre-K into portables because the construction costs and constraints. Even in a kindergarten classroom, the bathrooms aren't the appropriate size for pre-K. So you have to go and redo all those things. Well, that's additional funding, money that we don't get. We'd have to take it from general revenue from the programs and schools that we currently have going to do that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that we would have a difficult time with the funding unless something would change at the state level. And I don't know that that's something that's reasonably expected at this time. Again, our pre-K programs are premier. We get great success, and the students who go through it it's just such a nice transition to go from pre-K to kindergarten and elementary all at the same site. There's no anxiety, there's no turmoil. The parents feel comfortable with the school, the children do. It is a great way of doing it. But the funding is the major issue, and that's where we are at this point. And again, I don't know that the early learning coalitions or the private daycare providers would sit back and say, oh yeah, y'all go ahead and take as many as you want.
Well, I mean, the reason I brought this to the superintendent was the fact that finally we found somebody that's doing what we keep saying we need to be doing. And that's working with all the children from the beginning. Fighting against funds and things like that, things have changed before. You can't say, I can't say what will happen. But I think we need to make an effort to expose the rest of the state, even if we have to start doing it one county at a time, to the successes that they seem to be enjoying and finding out more about what's going on in the state of Louisiana. And if it's working, that might get somebody's attention. Because at the moment, we can't claim victories, except the ones I see in the schools that I see that have the pre-K programs going on. Jim Allen, she wanted them, begged them. I want my kids a year earlier, and it has made a difference in that school. Year after year after year. So, if that's what it takes, then, we need to do whatever. Mr. Superintendent, you're our leader on that one. I think we need to try whatever. If we're told to shut up, fine. It won't be the first time.
Yes, I think it's important for us to look into that because we want to reach more and more of our students and help that kindergarten readiness. And, Mr. Fetsko, you were talking about some of the funding, and Dr. Colo has done some great work. Because my drive was to get to have more pre-K units, because to your point, when we do pre-K, it makes a difference. It's great for our kids when we're doing pre-K at our schools. We've got some just dynamic teachers who are really dedicated. So we were able to add 4 units, but exactly what you said, we had to constrict some Title I dollars to do that. So you get kind of the seesaw of money. And funding certainly is a critical element to the whole concept. And you articulated that well. And when you have federal dollars and state dollars, and you get a lot of regulations and sometimes restrictions on how you can use those dollars. So I really look forward to diving into this further because, like I said, it is a very small school district, but they stumbled on something that seems to be pretty special. And we're at 2 very different states too. Structurally, I'm sure their Department of Ed is different than ours, but we'll see what we can find out.
Yeah. I think right, and let me just say, not only you talked to the coordinator of that parish.
I did.
But they also have a state coordinator. It's important enough that someone is sitting in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
Running these programs, because she told me she was very familiar with the director of this program. So undoubtedly they've jumped in with both feet, and they feel like this is something that they need to look into. So if we can piggyback on it, more power.
Well, I am 100% in favor of us doing as much pre-K as we possibly can in any ways that we can do it. I do know that there is now a chancellor for the Division
Yes.
of Early Learning.
Yes.
Okay, so they have a different direction that they've taken thus far. But again, they could do pilot programs or pilot counties, say, we have this need in Escambia to do something different, but we need to make sure that we don't step on too many toes. Because that creates problems, and it needs to be coming together. You know, again, we'll go into it and involve and include everyone who's going to be impacted.
Yes.
And so,
I hope it's all right that I've come up. I'm
No,
not going to
glad you
ask him
did.
up, but I did want to make one comment since we have the opportunity to ask our legislators for things that might help us in this arena. As was clearly stated so well by Mr. Fetsko, we provide a full-day pre-K program. So operating that is very expensive, and we do use Head Start dollars and Title I dollars to make that happen. If the state would consider reimbursing districts who provide a full-day program at a higher per-student reimbursement rate, that would go a long way toward helping us expand that if possible. And again, I want to also remind that because we use Title I dollars and not general fund dollars, schools must be a Title I school and be eligible for those funds under our current system of how we fund that program. So there are many, or several elementary schools that do not receive Title I funds. So unless the state provides some funds for just those specifically, it would be difficult to do a full-day program for them. So that would be my request if you talk to legislatures, if they would consider reimbursing us differently for full-day programs. That would help us immensely.
Superintendent's writing that one down.
yeah.
Yes.
Very,
Well,
good, very good. And that anything we can do.
Well, Dr. Colo, I know that you are constantly in touch with Mr. Watson at the Early Learning Coalition.
Yes.
And I know that from our meeting this morning, there were a large number, a couple $1 million of funds that were sent to our coalition that weren't used last year. A lot of that had to do with, because of COVID, parents just weren't sending their kids anywhere.
Right.
They stayed home with them. But there is a push because they also got their equivalent of ESSER dollars to do different things with funding and staffing and payments and stuff. So that, you know, going through the coalition and asking them to also support this idea with a higher level of funding, we'll work on that and spread that around and see what kind of support we could get. But I'd rather include the people than do it behind their back.
Correct. And oftentimes, and I know the superintendent, I've had this discussion often, when funding streams come down and you look closely at the details, they're usually almost always K-12 funds. They are not pre-K-12 funds.
Right.
And so we are limited right off the bat with that helping us with our program. Currently, we don't receive any general fund for Title I pre-K. We fund that exclusively with those 3 funding streams that are available to us, and make it go as far as we possibly can. And right now we're up to 16 sites with 31 classes. So we've expanded greatly and we'll continue to do so at every opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I thank you, Dr.
Great.
Colo, for the work that you do with that.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I'm loaded
Oh.
today. Madam Attorney, can I ask you a question? The class size, well, you look like you are very involved over there.
I'm trying to return all of the start of school emails that
I
I got from
understand.
principals.
Thank goodness you got them and I didn't. The class size amendment that was passed years ago. Can the legislature postpone that, delay it, stop it for a while, like we're doing the smoking rule?
No, the class size was a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
And the legislature doesn't, they have decided what the penalties are with regard, or the State Board of Education has decided what the penalties are for failing to meet class size. That's where the wiggle room is going to exist. But can they suspend a constitutional provision? No, they can't.
Okay. And the reason I ask, I happen to have heard a vignette by the superintendent from Duval County. I read a couple of other things from other counties, and I see that in everybody's discussion. We are having to do things different, and class size is one of them. So I didn't know if there was any way to even ask the legislators to help us in any way, besides the one you just said, if they ease up on the penalties. So is that something we should hint to our local legislators as we discuss the importance of having certified, full-time certified teachers in all classrooms all the time?
I'm not going to tell you what you should do when it comes to making political decisions, because
Yes, ma'am.
that's not my bailiwick, but.
But it's not a no-no. Okay. Thank you. I just feel like we have to meet the problems head on, and that can be one of the problems. I don't want any more students in classrooms than teachers can handle.
Right.
But at the same time, I want them in classrooms with certified teachers. And by the way, in that county, I think the superintendent found out that all pre-K teachers are certified teachers. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that ours in our classrooms, but I'm saying the entire school district, once they took it over, you have to be certified to be in teaching. And to me, that's a huge plus for working with those students.
I would agree with you. I think that certification and training, the curriculum, to have that highly coordinated and very consistent with best practices makes a huge difference.
Now, I think I hadn't heard anything from any legislators across the state of Florida, any other board members I communicate with. I think the hope is that by the governor raising the pay for teachers and all what we're doing, that we hope we get enough teachers to be able to comply with that law. In the end result, I don't think there's any movement at all to try to reverse that. Have you seen anything on that with your feds? I hadn't seen anything.
No.
So I believe they're kind of hoping that whatever we're doing now, that we slowly get out of this crisis, this hump, and have enough teachers that we can make sure we have adequate class size. So I just hadn't heard anything on that part, Bill. So
I just want to quote one of our outstanding educators from Escambia County, Darzell. She recently did an interview, and in that interview, she pointed out, nothing is going to change until the universities are able to supply us with teachers. And that's what we're waiting. They may be waiting on it to change, but it can't happen overnight. It takes 4 years to get a certified teacher. Am I right there, Ms. Warren?
And I agree, Bill, but I agree with what you're saying, Bill, about the difficulties we've got, but I think they're hoping sooner or later we will
sooner
be
or
able to
later,
cover
but
every class adequately.
Sooner or later, there's going to be
yeah.
another graduating class and
right.
another
That's
12 years of kids
Yeah.
that are going through this problem. We've got to meet this problem head on, and right now, teachers being trained is the biggest problem. Ms. Hightower?
Well, I've been attending a lot of webinars on recruiting teachers and retaining teachers, and I just told Ms. Krostag that I was going to set up a meeting with her and Mr. Leonard so that I could share with them all the things I'm learning. But one of the things, since Mr. Harrell is in the room now, and I'm going to put him on the spot, because one of the things I heard, I know we have teacher academies. What is the certification in Indiana, when they have their teacher academies, when they graduate, they are ready to be paraprofessionals in their school districts?
Yeah. we
And
do
I,
that too.
well, I needed to ask that question. I know that they're ready to do childcare, but
I could go and get Miss Atkinson in here to give you a specific
Well,
details.
she can just
but
send me
it's
an email,
Yeah, it's the
but-
Child Development Associate.
okay, because, I mean, I think that, again, waiting on others to do our work it'll be another decade before we get things done. So the more we can do to grow our own. When we were talking about I think there's one of the Tennessee Apprentice Program. I think Mr. Leonard has looked at that, and they're doing some of those things where they've got students that basically when they graduate from college, they're already an experienced teacher. They don't have to do that year of training because they've done things with them through the 4 years so that they are in fact ready to be in the classroom without a lot of guidance because they've been guided all along. But I just wondered, if as we look at our paraprofessionals as those people who enjoy being in our education community, if there's some things that we can put into place that I think it was the Secretary of Indiana that was talking about the fact that paraprofessionals can't afford to take time off from work to go to school. So they are putting some programs in place in Indiana so that they're helping those people keep their job, but also getting them prepared to move to that next level beyond paraprofessional. So there's some things that are out there, and a lot of it has to do with state initiatives that we may need to have to help our state figure out how to help us. But I just, that one in particular, and then there's another one, and I'll have to get back with you, but it's a behavioral health certification program. Students, there's an academy in one of these areas where they graduate and they graduate ready.
With the
from high
behavioral
school.
health certification, I'm not familiar with that one, but we could look into it and certainly investigate it. We, of course, would be open to those conversations, anything to make our students more prepared to enter the workforce where we need them.
Yes, like with us.
With us, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent, I guess if you and your staff will look at some of these changes we may do with the platform, and so this will be we'll probably put this on Tuesday night on the board agenda for approval for the platform, so we can discuss it again tomorrow at that point when we get to that agenda item. Would that work?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
and then that way, hopefully, we'll have one nice sheet. They like that when you go into legislators. They don't like two sheets. I guess we can do a front and back, but they'll never read the back. So whatever you put on there. So, but anyway, good discussion. What you had something to add, Mr. Superintendent?
I was just going to share that I had a recent conversation with the interim dean over education at UWF, talking about some possibilities of maybe in the future doing some dual enrollment with some teacher prep courses and see if we can garner some interest at the high school level for students, and then doing that in a dual enrollment format, which is of great benefit to them because then our students are getting high school credit and college credit at the same time. So I appreciate those conversations with UWF and their openness to some possibilities there.
Yeah, need all the help we can give.
Absolutely.
All right, any other conversation? Okay, I have no speaker forums up here with.
And I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Because last month I asked for a state of the schools at this month's meeting, and are you doing that tomorrow morning?
So with that, we were thinking of the strategic plan. So I may be confused on that. Were you thinking of the state of the goals that will be associated with the strategic plan?
I had the conversation last month. I'll have to refresh my brain. But we were talking about where we are with the charter, and I know you've shared information with us, but that's with us and not with the public. Some of the things we've kind of covered here with our personnel, our bus operation, where are we in enrollment? Where are we with the different things that make up the school district as we're moving forward united? Where are we, and where are our deltas, and where are those things that we are still striving to improve as we move into this year? Your plan for how we're going to address those things. I know that is strategic planning, but when we're looking at the scores of our schools, this was where we were discussing it, you know, what is your plan to address those schools that were low performing?
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We have no speaker forums, so no public forum. Do we have anything for the good of the order? If not,
How many of us were going to be Saturday morning at PSC, at the ECC PTA training?
I like to think. Am I
But that
okay?
doesn't have to be advertised,
She's
because we
saying I'm
won't be
okay.
talking to each other, we'll just be listening. Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably just come in for that first part of it. Okay, anything else? If not, we are adjourned.